Space, the final frontier where no wait a minute. That's Star Trek. Okay, let me start over. I've been watching too much Star Trek lately. Let's get back to chess. So, space in chess is essentially a race for territory. Whoever controls the most territory will become the attacker. It would be like playing a video game where the more territory you own, the more resources you are awarded. You therefore seek to control even more territory than your opponent so that you can earn more resources than him and thus be able to build a much larger army. You can then overwhelm him with greater numbers and go on to win. This is exactly what it is like in chess. The more space you control, the more options you have. Your opponent will have less space, he'll feel more restricted, and he'll have a much harder time defending his position. Therefore, when the game starts, develop your pieces towards the center of the board to control as much space as possible. I want to give some examples of this to better explain. So here, White can play his knight out to f3 and control an entire 8 squares. The knight is very well placed on f3 and is therefore able to help White gain more space. If we were to develop the knight out to h3, it only controls 4 squares from here, and as you can see by this arrow, it is far away from the center of the board and also very far away from the left side. So if the left side of the board were to ever come under attack, this knight would simply be too far away to help in the defense. However, the knight on f3 is only 1 square away from the center and very close to the left side of the board as well. So if you develop your pieces towards the center, not only do they control more space, but they're also really effective at being able to defend or attack on either side of the board. They can move much quicker. Alright, so let's take a look at another piece, the bishop. If the bishop were to move out to f4, well, it is a very good square. It is able to control 11 squares from here and is therefore very effective. If we move the bishop back to e3, it's not so effective because it only controls 8 squares, and therefore that gives black a slight advantage since he will be able to get ahead in spatial control. So it's very important not to let your opponent have too much space or get behind in the race for space. Alright, so let's go ahead and discuss this some more. You want to control the center of the board. Since you can control both the left and the right sides from the center. And again, that's also the same with this bishop on f4. If we look at it, it does control squares on the right side of the board, it controls squares in the center, and also on the left side of the board. So that's very important in case it needed to go to either side for defensive purposes or for a coordinated attack. It's very flexible. Alright, so you want to control more squares. There are also 4 centermost squares which are heavily fought over. They are called the sweet center, and the 4 squares are highlighted as follows. If you can control these 4 squares completely by yourself, then you can control the entire board. Therefore, these 4 squares are often heavily fought over and contested. Often both sides will have some control over the squares. Black may have control over these two squares, and white may have control over those two. Fighting for control over the sweet center is like playing King of the Hill. The top of the hill is a prize, and the objective is to take the hill and hold it as long as possible. If you can capture and hold the hill, then you will be able to go on and win the game, with all else being equal.